I've come to picturesque Tenby to tell you about one of my favourite Welsh artists, Augustus John, and to explore how a young lad from this small town became a highly respected and world-renowned artist. Someone who not only brought a lot of colour to his artwork, but who also was a rather colourful character himself.
I think I've got a very fishy reputation.
Augustus may have thought he had a dubious reputation, but I rate him highly. In fact, I own an Augustus John myself, and I think it's one of my best investments to date. Well, I brought you to this particular spot with this gorgeous backdrop behind me of higgledy-piggledy buildings in a palette of colour, because I know Augustus John would absolutely love that. To show you my pencil sketch, and as you can see, it's signed John here. It's a beautiful pencil sketch of a gorgeous woman, obviously one of his sitters, one of his models, painted in the 1930s. I don't know who it is. I've tried to do some research. I can't find out. He's ripped this up. As you can see, look, the paper's been torn there, and I have an accompanying letter. It's a photocopy of the letter that John wrote to his agent, and he's basically saying that he's instructed Francis Taylor, his agent, to take a lot of his things to America. He's cleaned the studio out of lots of things, including sketches and paintings that have been ripped up, as it says here, in a fit of anger. A complete moment of madness. So I don't know why he's ripped it up, but I'm fortunate enough to own this, and I'm very, very proud to. One day I will save up and buy an oil painting, that's for sure. That's my ambition. But why I love Augustus is because he has the draftsmanship qualities of Rembrandt. When you look at his work, you can see it in the studies and in the pencil sketches. Truly trained artist, but when you look at his looser oils on canvas, he can have this thickness and this expression that's so loose, like Matisse and Gauguin, which we'll look at later in the art gallery. So you've got the best of both worlds with Augustus John. Augustus' skill has not gone unrecognised. He's seen as one of the greatest artists of the 20th century. Undoubtedly, his hometown and its people were key to inspiring his talent. This is Victoria Street in Tenby, and I'm looking for Augustus John's family home. It's number 32. There's 31, so we're not far. In fact, there it is, the primrose yellow one, and there's the plaque on the wall. Gwen and Augustus John lived here. I've been looking forward to this moment because this is where the young talent was nurtured. Now, although Augustus was actually born just at the end of the road on the seafront section, he spent his childhood years here with his siblings and his father, Edwin. Sadly, his mother, Augusta, who he takes his name after, died when he was only 6 years old. But by then, Augustus and his sister Gwen had already inherited his mother's skill and passion for drawing. The young Augustus loved the outdoors and could often be found diving, swimming and rock climbing around the cliffs and beaches of Tenby. When Augustus was still a boy, he attended the local art school run by Edwin J. Head. It was here that Augustus' potential as an artist was uncovered, and it was E.J. Head's recommendation that Augustus attended the world-renowned Slade School of Art in London. Well, I've come here to the Tenby Museum Art Gallery to take a closer look at some more of Augustus John's work. I'm spoilt for choice, really. I'm surrounded, but so I should be. This is the home of Augustus. And if you get the chance to come here, check it out. It's well worth looking at. There's a lot to see. Now, here's two very good examples of what I was talking about earlier with my pencil sketch. You see the early works, you know, the draftsmanship of Rembrandt, and you can see that, can't you? The detail is absolutely incredible. That's a self-portrait of John in 1920. And here, slightly older, slightly more mature, 20-odd years later. It's looser. This is an oil on canvas, and this is a great example of Post-Impressionism. Now, Post-Impressionism was first coined by British art critic Roger Fry back in 1910, and it relates to the development of French art after Monet. So you're looking at artists like Gauguin and Matisse, and you can see there's a similarity in John's work with those two French artists. These are self-portraits, obviously, done by looking in the mirror, looking at himself, but capturing the spontaneity of the sitter, that reassurance that he captures is quite unbelievable. Look, here's a portrait of his son, his eldest son, David. Now, look at that. It's sort of... He's captured that spontaneous moment. It is like a photograph. Many artists wouldn't do that. But I think that just shows the quality of a true artist. And this was done shortly after the First World War. And here you can see his lovely big red beard. He was actually posted with the Canadian infantry during the First World War. as a war artist, and he was the only serving officer in the Allied forces throughout the First World War to be allowed to wear a full beard. The only other person was George V, the king. Augustus's mother and teacher were obviously pivotal to the man and his artwork. But it wasn't just people that influenced this virtuoso. And it was here in 1897 that everything changed for Augustus. He was on his vacations from the Slade School of Art in London, where he was studying. And he was swimming and sunbathing around here, Gilder Point, and those rocks right over there. He dived into the water and his head hit a submerged rock that he couldn't see. It was horrific. Followed by a long convalescence back at number 32 Victoria Street. But this whole episode seemed to have changed his life. He developed a carefree, live-for-the-moment attitude. And when he returned to the Slade School, he was a changed man. And I'd like to paint a picture of what he looked like. Don't forget, this is late Victorian period, okay? He must have stuck out like a sore thumb. He was lean. He was 6 feet tall. He started to grow his hair long and it was bright red, and he grew this big red beard as well. He had his ears pierced with gypsy earrings. And he actually boasted to one of his fellow students who he was studying with that we've become the very men that our fathers warned us against. Despite Augustus's cavalier attitude, he excelled in all elements of his studies at the Slade, and his works were revered even by his peers. By the 1920s, Augustus John was considered to be one of Britain's leading portrait artists, and he painted many of his closest friends and contemporaries. People like Dylan Thomas, Thomas Hardy, T.E. Lawrence, Lloyd George, George Bernard Shaw and Winston Churchill, and scores of countless beautiful young women. His reputation as the King of Bohemia was in full swing, and it was around this time that he'd fathered a number of children. Upon his death in 1961 at the age of 83, he'd approximately fathered 12 kids by 5 different women. And the art critic Brian Sewell actually sums up Augustus's lifestyle by saying, all the young women that he drew, he was destined to sleep with, and all the women that he went to bed with, he drew. He loved life. He was such a character. Augustus never forgot his roots, and in October 1959 he returned to Tenby and was awarded the Freedom of the Borough, Tenby's highest honour. So is Augustus's self-proclaimed fishy reputation one that's going to stick? Well, I don't think so. His bohemian lifestyle may have fitted the bill. But for me, Augustus John is a genius of his generation and genre, and provides a relatively affordable way of buying into that top-end art world. You can pick up a portrait, an oil on canvas, for around £10,000, as opposed to hundreds of thousands or even millions of pounds that you associate with the pre-Raphaelite artists, of which I think Augustus John has made an equal contribution towards the history of British art. He's definitely left a legacy.